The first thing we're going to have is when you see an error pop up that reads, cannot find an elbow. And this happens when you are processing one of your layouts. So I'm going to pop open an example here of where we might see something like this. And we can turn that off. And we can turn a lot of this off, actually, so it'll be easier to see. So here we have, and I'm going to zoom in on one part that's really obvious. We have what is being asked for is a heavier gauge system, okay? So if it tells you that it cannot find the elbow, one of the very first things to do is to come over here in design and scroll down with yourself and take a look at elbow type where it has here, okay? Now, this is the one that tripped me up last week. Your choices here are stitch welded or tubed, and this is for elbow types below 8-inch diameter, okay, for 1D and 1.5D radius. Now, if I'm asking for heavy gauge, which I was at the time, and I'm asking for stitch welded elbows, guess what? There is no such thing because you cannot stitch weld heavy gauge stuff. So the thing to do is to come in here and change that to a tubed elbow. And that'll allow you to get that heavy gauge. Now, again, that's for below 8-inch is that setting. Now, obviously, above 8 inches, you're going to be able to have gored elbows, and you can set those to be heavier gauge. All right. So that's number one. If you get that same error that it says when you're processing, you cannot find an elbow, it will give you the actual location, the section number. Now, if it's not that you're asking for a heavy gauge stitch welded elbow, look and see, do you have a mixed layout? And in fact, this is what we call a mixed layout. This particular one is a mixture of US tubing and US duct flanged duct here, okay? Now, where you run into trouble is usually in the area of branches. Now, if we were to add, say, here I've got flanged duct, and if I come in here and I want to add, let's say, an 8-inch section coming off, right? And we click and we do our usual where we're going to come out, right? All right, well, if we zoom in, we can see that this is US duct, right? And that would be found because it's all great, okay? So let's set that back down to say about 10 feet coming out. Now, what if I need this to be US tubing? Well, I simply select that section that I'm going to change, and I can change it to US tubing. Here's the problem. If you look here, this is all being asked to be US tubing because that's where the section goes in. I'm using a default group of a branch plus an elbow, in this case, 45 degrees each. And DuckQuote will not be able to find this kind of a mixed situation because I'm using the default. Now, the way that I could get this to work is I simply have to redraw it so that I can choose an exact section where the change happens so that the entire elbow is US duct or US tubing, whichever one I decide, but I would have to draw the lateral stop and then the elbow stop, and then I can choose, you see? Another way, which you can see right here, is I can put a space in between, and that makes life very easy for me because this entire thing is going to be flanged, duct flanged. And then I've put a flange adapter on the end of that US tubing. Okay. So that will take care of actually the when you process cannot find the elbow. All right.